In the great libraries of Rome, one can find thousands of scrolls detailing the laws of taxes, property, and war. But there were other, more vital laws, the laws of survival, that were never carved in stone. They were whispered in shadowed corridors, passed down not in writing, but in the knowing glance between generals before a decisive battle, or between an emperor and his successor as the empire teetered on the brink. These were the unwritten laws for mastering the most dangerous weapon of all, one's own emotions. Welcome to Stoic Source. Today we will listen to those whispers. These are the 14 survival rules of the Stoic masters. So, upon what foundation were these survival rules built? Before learning to fight the storm, the Romans understood they first had to build an impregnable fortress within. That foundation rests on 4 core principles, 4 pillars of mental strength. The first and most important law: define your battlefield. Imagine you are Epictetus. You were not born to privilege. You were born a slave. Your every day was dictated by the will of another. One day, your cruel master, in a fit of rage, breaks your leg. The physical pain is real. The injustice is real. But amidst this suffering, Epictetus discovered a greater truth. He realized the world is divided by an invisible line. On one side lies everything that can be taken from you: your body, your property, your freedom, even your life. But on the other side, inside that line, lies an untouchable kingdom: your thoughts, your choices, your decision on how to face adversity. They could chain his leg, but they could not chain his will. This is the shield of the Stoic. All emotional intelligence begins the moment you realize where your true power lies. The second law: flow with the river. Now let us turn to Zeno, the father of Stoicism. He was a wealthy merchant, until one day a Mediterranean storm sank his ship, taking his entire fortune to the bottom of the sea. Standing on the shore, penniless, having lost everything, what would be our reaction? Bitterness, despair, cursing the gods. But not Zeno. He looked at the waves and uttered a sentence that would change the history of philosophy. "Fortune, I thank you, for you have pushed me toward philosophy." He didn't see it as a random accident, but as a course correction, an invitation from the universe. The Stoics believe the cosmos operates on a rational order they called the logos. To fight it is as futile as trying to stop the tide. Instead, you learn to ride the waves. Accepting what you cannot change is the first step toward finding peace. The third law: the view from above. If Zeno taught us acceptance, then Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, taught us how to shrink our problems. Every night, amid the pressures of war and politics, he didn't turn to wine or feasts. He turned to a scroll and a pen. In his immortal journal, Meditations, he repeatedly practiced a mental exercise: the view from above. Imagine you are flying higher than the clouds, looking down on the city of Rome, then the entire empire, then the whole earth, now just a small blue dot. From that perspective, an argument with the Senate, a criticism, a worry. What are they? They are mere specks of dust in the vastness of space and time. Alexander the Great and his mule driver, once dead, were the same. This exercise wasn't for comfort. It was to put everything in its proper place. And the final foundational law: become the inner gatekeeper. The Stoics understood that the most dangerous enemy does not come from without. It comes from the thoughts that infiltrate our minds. They saw themselves as sentries at the gates of a city, tasked with interrogating every visitor before granting entry. A negative thought approaches: "I've ruined everything." The gatekeeper stops it and asks, "Who are you? Are you the truth or merely a hasty judgment?" The truth is, this project failed. The judgment is, I am a failure. The gatekeeper allows only the truth to pass, and slams the gate shut on the toxic judgment. These 4 laws are the shield and the compass. They don't promise a life without storms, but they guarantee that when the storm hits, you will always have a shelter and a direction. With shield and compass in hand, the Stoics were ready to face life's greatest storms. This is no longer theory. These are tools forged in the crucible of high-stakes history. The 5th law, the Emperor's pause, to master rage. The year is 175 AD. A devastating report reaches Rome. Avidius Cassius, the most brilliant general, Marcus Aurelius's most trusted friend, has betrayed him. He has declared himself emperor in the East, taking several legions with him. The Senate's first reaction? Panic and fury. They scream for the emperor to punish Cassius's family, confiscate his property, and crush the rebellion with blood. Imagine you are Marcus. Your best friend stabs you in the back. The empire is at risk. What is your gut reaction? Rage, the desire for immediate revenge. But Marcus did not act. He invoked the 5th law. He retreated to his private quarters. History doesn't record the details, but we can imagine him pacing, breathing, questioning himself with Stoic principles. He created a pause between the shock and the response. The result? When he appeared before the Senate, he didn't speak of vengeance. He spoke of his sadness at losing a friend, and his hope that Cassius would not be killed or commit suicide, so that he might have the chance to forgive him. That precious pause transformed a personal rage that could have destroyed the empire into an act of imperial wisdom and compassion, saving Rome from a bloody civil war. The 6th law, the art of forgiveness, to face your enemies. Not every emperor possessed Marcus's composure. His predecessor, Hadrian, was known for his quick temper and an infallible memory. He remembered the face and name of every political enemy who had ever crossed him. One day, after being crowned emperor, he ran into one of his fiercest rivals on the street. The man turned pale, certain his life was over. But Hadrian simply looked at him and said calmly, "You are safe now." Why? Because Hadrian understood a profound truth. To sit on the throne while nursing a grudge is to drink poison every day. Vengeance only breeds more conspiracy and instability. Forgiving an enemy, in this case, was not an act of weakness. It was a brilliant strategic move to secure peace for himself and the empire. The 7th law, the practice of death, to face your fears. Seneca, one of Rome's greatest minds, was a man of immense wealth and power. Yet every day he practiced a strange exercise. Memento Mori, remember you will die. He would meditate on impermanence, on the worst-case scenarios, losing his fortune, exile, illness, and death itself. He didn't do this to be morbid, quite the opposite. By practicing death in his mind daily, he stripped fear of its power. He realized most of our daily worries, a slight, a minor loss, are meaningless when placed next to our mortality. This practice helped him live a fuller, more courageous life. It reminded him, your time is limited. Don't waste it on trivial things. Live every day as if it were your last. The 8th law, the hand in the fire, to endure physical pain. Can the mind triumph over the body's pain? The Romans believed so, and they had a legend to prove it. Mucius Scaevola, a young soldier, snuck into an enemy camp to assassinate their king. He failed and was captured. To demonstrate Roman courage, he calmly thrust his right hand into a fire and held it there until it was consumed, without uttering a sound. This incredible act so terrified the enemy king that he made peace with Rome. This story, though legendary, became a core lesson for the Stoics. Pain is a signal from the body, but suffering is a choice of the mind. You cannot control the pain, but you can control your interpretation of it. And finally, the twin laws for mastering the greatest temptations: power and the ego. Laws 9 and 10, the integrity of Cato and the humility of Cincinnatus. Cato the Younger was a statesman so famously incorruptible that his name became synonymous with integrity. Julius Caesar, the most powerful man of his time, tried everything: money, titles, threats to sway him, but failed. Cato would rather die than bend to tyranny, because he understood that once you sell your principles, you have nothing left. Meanwhile, look at Cincinnatus, the Roman ideal. When Rome was invaded, the Senate granted him absolute dictatorial power to save the city. After defeating the enemy in just 15 days, he did the unthinkable. He immediately relinquished all power and returned to his farm. Cato and Cincinnatus taught us the ultimate unwritten law. The greatest power is not to rule over millions, but to rule over yourself. 6 laws, 6 stories. They show us that for the Stoics, philosophy was not written on a page. It was lived in action. Now let's see how they applied these principles to build relationships and a better society. Mastering oneself is a great war. But the Stoics knew the real test wasn't only inside the inner citadel. It was out in the world, where we must interact with hundreds, thousands of other people, people who do not live by our rules. So how do you build an empire of lasting relationships in a flawed world? They began with an idea that is both beautiful and revolutionary. This is the 11th law, the invisible web. The Stoics called it Sympathia. They believe the entire cosmos is interconnected by an invisible web. Every person, every creature, every star is a single thread in one giant tapestry. What does this mean? It means that to harm another is to harm yourself. To help a stranger is to heal a small part of the universe and, in turn, to heal yourself. This is not a romantic notion. It is the foundation of a civilized society. When you look at a beggar, a political opponent, or someone who irritates you and see them as a branch of the same tree, you can no longer treat them with contempt. From this awareness comes the 12th law. Listen like a doctor. Think about this. When you go to a doctor, do you want them to write a prescription immediately? Or do you want them to listen carefully to your symptoms first? A good doctor doesn't just hear the words. They diagnose the root cause. The Stoics applied this to every conversation. When someone unloads their anger on you, instead of reacting to their words, diagnose them. What is the underlying motive? What fear is driving them? What unmet desire has caused this outburst? Listening this way turns a confrontation into an opportunity for understanding. And when you understand, you can apply the 13th law. Lead by example. Roman history is filled with emperors who demanded sacrifice from others while they lived in luxury. But the greatest emperors, like Trajan and Marcus Aurelius, did the opposite. They lived simple lives. They ate the same rations as their soldiers, marched alongside them under the hot sun. They didn't preach about hard work. They embodied it. They understood a fundamental truth of human psychology. Respect cannot be commanded. It must be earned. And the only way to earn it is to be the example you wish to see in others. Finally, it all comes down to the 14th law. Deal in reality. Epictetus, the former slave, put it perfectly. Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish for things to happen the way they do happen, and your life will go well. Apply this to people. Do not expect your spouse, your children, your friends, or your colleagues to follow the script you've written for them in your head. They have free will. They are fighting their own battles you know nothing about. Instead, accept them as they are, in all their complexity and imperfection. And from that acceptance, treat them with fairness and reason. This is not resignation. It is the wisdom to build real, lasting relationships, instead of chasing idealistic expectations and suffering endless disappointment. These 4 laws teach us how to step outside our inner fortress and become citizens of the world, builders of bridges, not walls. The Roman Empire fell. Its strong walls are now ruins. Its mighty legions have turned to dust. Their glory and power have become stories in history books. But one thing still stands, deathless, timeless. It is the legacy of inner strength. The 14 laws we've just explored are not lifeless marble statues. They are seeds of wisdom, planted and tested in the harshest conditions history has ever known. Today, our world is different. Your battlefield may not be the German frontier, but a high-pressure board meeting. Your enemy may not be a rebellious general, but the procrastination and fear of failure deep within you. Your plague may not be the Antonine pestilence, but the flood of information and endless distraction from social media. The context has changed, but the war within the mind remains the same. These 14 laws are not ancient relics to be admired. They are a set of weapons, a shield, a compass. They teach us one ultimate truth. You cannot control the world outside, but you can always build an empire within, an empire of calm, of clarity, and of resilient dignity. An empire that no crisis, no criticism, no injustice can ever conquer. And that empire begins to be built right now, with the very next challenge you face. The question is not if the storm will come. It will. The question is, how will you choose to meet it? Choose wisely. Thank you for joining Stoic Source.